All right, today we're jumping into something you've probably never seen before. We're breaking down a 6th grade math lesson that mixes algebra with stories from the Bible. Yep, you heard that right.
So, let me just ask you this straight up. Can you solve for x using scripture? I mean, it sounds a little wild, right? But for one class of 6th graders, that's literally what's on the menu. Let's dig in and see how this whole thing works.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. What we're looking at here is a lesson plan designed to teach some pretty standard math stuff, one-variable equations and inequalities. But the twist is how they do it, by wrapping these math problems in some of the most well-known stories from the Bible.
So the official goal here, right from the curriculum, is to get students to use these math skills to solve real-world problems. And that's pretty standard. But here's the kicker. The real world they're talking about is the world of the Bible. That's what makes this so different.
But hold on, this isn't just about slapping a biblical theme onto some word problems to make them more interesting. Nope, there's a much deeper philosophy at play here, something the curriculum calls the big idea.
And this is where things get really interesting. The lesson basically reframes the whole point of learning math. It's not just about passing a test, right? It's presented as a tool for stewardship, which is another way of saying it helps you manage resources wisely, to plan things, build things, and serve other people. The whole idea is to connect solving for x with what figures like Nehemiah or Jesus did, trying to make these abstract numbers feel like they have a real purpose, at least within this particular worldview. Okay, before we jump into the stories themselves, let's do a super quick math refresher. The students are basically using two main tools. First, you've got your basic equation, right? Like 4x equals 28. That's going to give you one single exact answer. Then you've got an inequality, something like 3x is less than or equal to 90. That doesn't give you one answer. It gives you a whole range of possible answers. Knowing the difference is going to be super important for what comes next.
All right, theory's over. Let's see this thing in action. How on earth do you take a story from thousands of years ago and turn it into an algebra problem that a 6th grader can actually solve? Let's find out.
So first up, we've got Nehemiah. His job is huge. He's got to rebuild a wall. But he's dealing with a problem that I think we can all relate to: a tight budget.
So here's the breakdown. Step 1. Figure out the goal. The problem says he has no more than 90 coins. See, those keywords are the clue. We're not looking for one exact number, we're looking for a maximum. And that tells us, boom, it's an inequality. So you set it up. Each stone is 3 coins. So 3 times x, the number of stones, has to be less than or equal to 90. You do the math, and there's your answer. Nehemiah can buy up to 30 stones.
Okay. Next up, the lesson switches to a story that's probably a lot more familiar to most people: Jesus feeding the crowd. But you gotta pay close attention here, because the math is going to be totally different this time.
See, in this problem, the language is the key. It says there's a total of 28 loaves. That one little word, total, changes everything. It tells you we're not looking for a range anymore, we're hunting for one single exact number. And that means we need an equation. So 4 loaves per basket times x baskets equals 28. The answer? A single precise number, exactly 7 baskets.
All right, so after that, the lesson kind of turns up the difficulty a notch with a 2-step problem. This time, the story's about Mary. She's saving up coins every week to buy some perfume, but she's already got a little bit of money to start with.
And this one's a bit trickier, right? Because you're juggling a few pieces of info. She saves 5 coins a week, so that's your 5x. But you can't forget about the 20 coins she already has. Then you look at the goal. She needs at least 65 coins. And again, that phrase "at least" is our big clue that it's an inequality. So you put it all together. Her weekly savings, 5x, plus the 20 she started with, has to be greater than or equal to 65. You solve that, and you find out she needs to save for a minimum of 9 more weeks.
Okay, so once the students have worked through these examples with the teacher, it's their turn to fly solo. Let's check out what the homework looks like.
This table really lays it all out nicely. You can see they're pulling from all over the place. We've got Joseph, Peter, Martha, and look at the mix of problems. Joseph needs at least 200 sacks of grain. So what's that? An inequality. But then Elijah uses a total of 30 logs, which means it's an equation. So the whole point of the homework is for the students to get really good at reading the story carefully to figure out which tool they need to use.
So you do all the math, you solve for x, you check your work, but what's the big takeaway? Where does this all lead? Well, the lesson brings it all home with one final theological point.
And the whole thing is anchored by this one verse from 2 Kings. Go, sell the oil, and pay your debt.
It comes from a story about a widow who gets this miraculous help just when she needs it.
And this is the final connection the lesson makes. It ties the Bible verse directly back to the math they've been doing. The idea is that God provides exactly what's needed. Nothing more, nothing less. And that idea of a single perfect, exact amount is meant to be a kind of spiritual reflection of an equation, right? Where there's only one correct, exact answer.
So when you look at this whole thing, it really leaves you with a pretty big question to chew on, doesn't it? How much does the story behind a math problem actually change how we feel about the numbers? Whether that story is about something simple like buying apples or something as grand as a biblical narrative, how does that change the way we connect with math itself?